Hello class, this week we are looking at Chapter 8 and Lab 8.1. For the lab this week, you are doing, again, looking at the same data set as before, that we've used before, the congestive heart failure analysis, the CHF data set. So in our lab this week, the CFO at General Hospital noticed that the losses for some Medicare, remember we're dealing with Medicare CHF patients, were becoming larger each year. In order to understand why this is occurring, he assigned a data analyst to review the issue. The analyst requested a file including the following billing information for each case in grouping to one of the CHF MS-DRGs. We know that the DRG sets that we have in our data set are the CHF MS-DRGs, 291, 292, and 293. So this is the information, the chart that you have in your lab assignment is the information that we have in our data set. And if you'll notice, the question that they're asking is about profit and loss. And as we look at our data set, we notice that profit and loss isn't a variable in our data set. So the first thing we have to do is do some calculations. The instruction sheet gives you the formula that you'll need to use to calculate profit and loss. The first thing you have to do is calculate a cost column because we have amount reimbursed, so we know how much we received from Medicare, and we have a combination of charges, but those combination of charges are just what our facility charges and not what is the cost of those charges. So in our instruction sheet, it says the analyst immediately notices the data documentation or dictionary supplied with the data does not include some critical elements, just like I said. The first step that needs to be taken will be finding the coded values for the following variables. And we already know that: age category, gender, admission source, discharge destination. We have that information in the data dictionary that's supplied. And again, this is, they use the standard codes for those admission sources and discharge destinations, as well as the MedPAR standard for patient, gender, and age category. Okay, so what we need to do is answer the following question. What is the typical loss per CHF patient? Assume that the cost to charge ratio, CCR, for General Hospital is 0.3 for ancillary department charges and 0.5 for accommodations department. So now we have to create a column. The first thing we have to do is create a profit and loss column, and we are going to right click and we're going to insert. Oh, that's the wrong side. Right click and we're going to insert. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is calculating a cost column. So we're going to label this cost. And we're going to create our formula. So right now we are using the cost to charge ratio for General Hospital is 0.3 for the ancillary charges and 0.5 for the accommodations charge. So we know that F is our accommodations charges, and G, it's labeled as total department charge, but that is considered our ancillary departments. And so we're going to do a little calculation here. We start all formulas with equals, and the formula is given to you in your instruction sheet. F2, accommodations, We're multiplying that by 0.5. And then we're adding, so the plus sign. And we're multiplying our ancillary department, or our total charge, times 0.3, I believe. Enter. And so now we have our total cost for this patient for these charges. So what we want to do now is we want to copy that formula all the way through our data set. And that way we have total charges, or total cost, I'm sorry, not charges, total cost for all of our patients in our data set. And now what we want to do, and you can create these columns over to the right. I typically do them within my data set just so it's a little bit easier for me to do my calculations. So now I want to calculate a profit loss column. So in order to calculate profit and loss, we have to take our amount that we are reimbursed, subtract our cost. So we have both of those variables now, equal sign, amount reimbursed, minus total cost, enter. Okay, so if you'll notice right off the bat, patient number 1 actually has a loss. It's got a negative number there. We want to copy this formula all the way through our data set. And we'll notice there's lots of negatives. So our CFO definitely is picking up on something that's happening with these specific types of patients, or CHF patients, is that there are a lot of patients that we're seeing that are generating a loss. Our costs are definitely higher than our reimbursements. That is definitely a red flag. There's something happening that is impacting our bottom line. So that's something that we want to look at. So now it's asking you, to find the average of the profit loss column. That's a pretty simple thing to do. You can use your data analysis tool pack, data analysis, and use your descriptive statistics. Remember, your mean and your average are the same thing. So you could do descriptive statistics, or you can use a simple formula, Excel formula. If we're wanting to calculate average, equal sign, we can use the average function, and then we can include all the information that's in our profit loss column. Don't include the heading or the label in the first row, but include all your data. That's going to give you your average. So that's going to tell you what the average profit is. And so you should, on your homework assignment, you should tell me what your conclusion is about the average of the profit column. So if you read question 1, it says, what is the typical loss? So that gives you a little clue as to what your, that maybe your answer to that average profit and loss column will probably be a negative. So it'll probably be a loss. So you should give me that information. Again, I don't want your Excel file uploaded into the submission box. I want you to just answer this question. Okay, so the next question it asks on your homework assignment is, does General Hospital have any profitable CHF patients? So in order to look to kind of lump those patients together as far as profit and loss, we can sort them smallest to largest or largest to smallest. This is going to show us all of the profits together, And then we come down to where it starts our losses and all of our patients that are represented by a loss. So question number 2, it says, does General Hospital have any profitable CHF patients? We've already identified that yes, they do have some profitable CHF patients. And what we need you to do is describe those patients in relationship to maybe length of stay, age, sex. What are the commonalities that you're seeing? Are there more males, more females? Their age range, is that impacted? Their length of stay. What impacts the fact that they have a profit? And then question number 3, ask, how does the mix of complication comorbidity, no complication comorbidity, complication comorbidity patients and major complication comorbidity patients compared to the national mix from the HCUP database? So here is what we want to do here is kind of twofold. We want to go to the HCUP website and pull some data from there to use in a table to make some comparisons. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to insert, and we're going to insert a pivot table. We are going to collapse this, move it out of the way. We want all of our information in our pivot table, and we're going to put it in a new worksheet. Okay, and so the first thing we want to do is we want to do 2 things. We want to say how the spread of our patients compares to the spread of the HCUP, that national statistic. So we're looking at the spread of DRG patients. This is kind of something we've done before. And our patients, and remember it automatically sums. We don't want it to sum, we want it to count those patients. So we can see that this is how our patients are spread through our data set. We want to do a row of calculations to see what percentage is of each group, and we're going to label it percentage, and we're going to center that. And so here we're going to do a little formula, equal sign, our count of 291 patients divided by our total count of patients. And we are going to do an equal sign here, count of our 292 patients divided by our total number of patients. And again here we are going to do our equal sign, our total of our 293 patients divided by our total patients. And then we're going to sum this. And we are going to change this to percentage. Okay, so now what we need to do is grab some information from the HCUP website, and I'm going to show you how I want you to do that. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to the HCUP website, and we are getting our information for our Medicare patients, total number of discharges per MSDRG, to see how our discharges, our number of patients compare to the spread of patients for the 3 MSDRGs. So we're creating an analysis, inpatient. I'm going to try to do this so that everybody can see. descriptive statistics, we are going to use the 2012 data set. And do you want the data on a specific DRG or procedure? Yes. And we're going to choose a classification system. We want an MSDRG. We want 291. We want 292. And we want 293. And we want each code listed separately. And we're going to create that analysis, but we have to add a little bit more information. Okay, it just gives us the total number of discharges, and remember we are looking at Medicare only patients. So we have to include payer, and then we need to submit our request. Okay, so if you look at the first MSDRG, which is 291, Medicare patients 239035, and we have our DRG 290. 292 were Medicare patients, total number of discharges, so total number of patients 279,010. And then for our 293, Medicare as the payer, our discharges 114,680. So what we're going to do now is plug that information into our table that we have here, and we're going to label it HCUP. And so for our Medicare patients with the DRG code of 291, the total number of patients nationally 239,035. Oops. And put a decimal place instead of a comma. Okay. So for the 292, oops. We have 279,010. Oh, it would help if I was in the cell. 279,010. And then for our 293 DRG, we have 114. And then we need to sum that. Okay, enter. And again, we're looking at percentages of this as well, so that we can make a comparison between the information from our data set compared to that national statistic. So percentage, and remember we're creating a formula here to take our data and divide that by our total. And we're going to do the same thing for each of these. And then we're going to sum that as well. And we are going to change these to percentages. So if we see that in our data set, the patients represented by the 291 DRG is 42%, but in that national average, that national statistic, the overall patients that represent the 291 DRG is just 38%. And then, so you'll see the percentages for each one of these are somewhat different. So that should help you answer that next question. Which DRG does General Hospital have a higher percentage of patients than the HCUP percentage? And what does this mean for the hospital compared to other hospitals with the typical H-cup mix. Okay, so you're just answering that question. How does our data compare to that H-cup data? How do those percentages compare? And how might that impact that profit and loss? So the next thing I want you to do is we're going to do another pivot table. And basically what we're going to do is highlight the one we've already created and hit copy. And we're going to go below and click paste. That's going to open up a new pivot table. And we want to add to see profit and loss. And again, it sums it, but that really doesn't tell us what we want to know. We want the average profit and loss per DRG code. And probably want to clean this up a little bit. And so again, this can give you the answer to your first question where you did your calculations, but it also shows you which DRG has the highest profit or loss. So that's the other question that you kind of need to answer. I want to see you replicate this information in your own spreadsheet, walking through the steps. I've helped you through that process, but make sure you understand how to do these things. These might be some good questions to ask of your own data set for the final project. And just keep in mind, as we're working through all of these labs, bits and pieces of these labs can be something that you're using or taking and replicating in your data set. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.